Hey everyone, and welcome back to another mobile game development tutorial. So in this one we're actually going to be implementing touch controls where we can move our camera around. So we're going to be positioning our camera just above our player here. And when we go and touch the screen and slide our finger to a new position, we're going to be moving the camera in the opposite direction. So this way we can pan and move our camera around in any direction that we want. So before we begin, you could actually attach this just to an empty game object if you want to stick to one axis. But for now, we're just going to be leaving it how it is. We can adjust that in the future, depending on where we want our camera to move. So yeah, we're just going to go jump into our code and set this up. So now we're just going to jump into our main game script, since this is the one that's attached to our camera. And you can just create a separate script if you want to keep track of all the camera movements, but for now, we're just going to program everything in here. So the first thing we're going to do is create a public float for speed. And this is what we're just going to be using to keep track of the camera movement speed, depending on our finger's position and how fast we move it across the screen. And now we're just going to jump into our update and set this up. So the first thing we want to do is create an if statement. And we're going to be using input.touchCount. And then we're going to say if it's greater than 0. So this is pretty much saying if we have more than one finger on the screen, then we want to activate this code. And then we want to do input.getTouch. Then we'll set that to 0.face. And then equal to touchPhase.moved. So what this is pretty much saying is if we have at least one finger on the screen and our touch position moved from our last position, then we want to do something with this code. So it's saying, yeah, if our finger is just moving across the screen, then we'll activate this code. Now we need to keep track of our position of our finger, so we're going to do a vector2, and we're just going to call this touch delta position. And we're going to equal that to our input.getTouch. And then we want to do the same touch delta position. And now we actually want to calculate all this together. So we want to move our camera depending on where our touch position is moving via the vector2. So we're going to do a transform.translate, and we're going to do minus touch delta position. So we can just put this in here, .x times speed, so how fast we want that to move, and then we want to do the same for our y, times speed, and then 0 for the z. So this is pretty much all we need to move our camera around depending on the touch position. So I'm just going to pause the video real quick and add some footage of me testing this on my phone. Also, I forgot to include the minus, and we actually have to go into our game real quick. And before you test, you want to actually go in and set the speed. So we'll set this to 0.1 because we just don't want it to go too fast while we're testing. I guess we can adjust that later, but for now we'll leave it as that. And when you go to export your game, I should probably note that in the build settings, you're going to want to go to player settings, and in this package name, you're going to need to name your company and your game in here. You might need this as well, but you're going to get errors if you don't do it that way. I tried setting up the remote play earlier, but for some reason my phone doesn't want to work with it. So if you're having that same issue, you can just export and use a certain tool from the App Store called, let's see here, just File Manager, and you can install APKs directly from your downloads if you want to transfer it to your phone. So you just want to get that all set up. So now that we're in game, I'm just going to show you guys how this works. So if I click and drag to the right, it goes left. If I click and drag to the left, it goes right. Same for up and down.
it's both opposite. So you guys could set up the controls so it's not that way by removing the negative on the two controls if you wanted just to go the other way. But for now, we're just going to leave it like this, and that's the basic test.
So now I just wanted to show you guys one more thing you could add to this code that might be useful in certain situations where you want to constrain the camera to a certain area. So if we open up our code, we can actually use a clamp to keep the camera within a certain area. So if it's exceeding a certain XYZ position, it'll stop the camera from moving past that point. So if you have a certain area that you don't want your player to leave, or the camera to leave, maybe you didn't finish a certain part of the area, or you just want to keep it in one point, we can just add in a simple piece of code to do that. So we're going to add transform.position, and we're going to be equaling that to a new vector 3. And from here we want to use our clamp function. So we're just going to go down here just to keep it a little bit more organized, and we do mathf.clamp. And we're going to be using this code for both the X, Y, and Z positions. So we'll do transform.x, and then this is where you'll set both the positions that you want in game. So if we go in game real quick, if you want to actually take the camera itself and look at the X, Y, and Z positions, and we move our camera over this way or over that way, you can see down below, down here, how far it might go. So if we want to lock the camera to, let's say, this point, so it stays within and it doesn't go all the way out here, you would just look at this position right here. So we could do like -35, and then you can go over, and this one could be 25 or something like that. I just wanted to give you guys a basic idea of how we're going to set up the different numbers for that. Same for the height. If you just wanted to go down this far and not through the ground, you would set it at probably 1, and then the height however high you want it to go. So we're just going to set that up real quick. So we're going to be setting this first one at, I think it was -35, and then our next one will just be 25.0f. See, and then we want to copy the exact same code again, but we're going to be doing this for the Y. So I believe it was 1.0, and height we could just do 20 or so. And then the last one is going to be for Z. Let's see here. So for Z, we could probably just set this at whatever we want. So if we wanted to keep it in place, we could just do -9, -15. Or something like that. You guys can play around with these numbers till you get something that how you actually want to set it up. And then we're going to close this off. Let's see, oh, I forgot position. So that's pretty much all you need to do to clamp the camera within these certain areas for the X, Y, and Z. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this tutorial. Next time we'll continue on with a couple of other different touch controls and other things we could do. Thanks for watching.